My name is Richard Judge. I'm the principal at Encina Preparatory 612 High School.
Thanks for coming. I'm Barry Roth. Was a member of the design team that you'll hear about that, and I'm coordinator of community partnerships and also lead site rep.
I'm Molly Elliott. I'm the math department chair at Encina. I was also on the design team and on the site leadership team. I'm the high school director for the San Juan Teachers Association.
My name is Ed Burgess. I am the, I teach English at Encina. I am the English department chair. I serve on the site leadership team, and I'm the bargaining chair for the Teachers Association. We work at Encina High School, Preparatory High School, I should say. We are actually in the San Juan Unified School District up in Sacramento. We have a student population of about 42,000 students in our district, but we are a very spread out district. While we have 51% of our students who fall into the unduplicated count, that's actually a very misleading statistic, because on the east end, we have schools that are actually close to about 13% of their students, and at schools on the west end, like Encina, we have approximately 97% of our students falling into the unduplicated count. The vast majority, we have about 95% who are on free and reduced lunch. So that sort of skews the statistics when you look at our district just a little bit. We have really high areas of concentration, none quite as high as ours, but we're lucky that way. We're going to talk a little bit about what collaboration between management and labor can look like at a site level, what kind of supports are necessary. And in order to sort of begin this conversation, we wanted to give you, sort of set the historical context for why the change began. And so Molly's going to start us off with that.
Okay, I came to Encina in 1996. I'm the only staff member that was working in 1996 that is still at the school. Encina is a high poverty school. 90 to 95% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. It's an ethnically diverse population. We have 40% Hispanic Latino, 30% African American, and 20% white. However, a lot of the white students that are identified as white are actually Arabic. They're part of our influx of Arabic students that have come in the last 3 or 4 years. We have 1/3 of our students are English language learners, predominantly Spanish and Arabic. 2% of our entire population, 2% of this entire district's population is represented in Encina, so we only represent 2% of the population. However, 10% of the homeless population in the entire district goes to Encina. We have 40% of our student body that's identified homeless by McKinney-Vento, but reality is we're probably looking at about 60%. Several families choose not to identify themselves as homeless, but we believe the number is closer to 60%. Our site has a high mobility. We have a lot of in and outs of students, 76.7% mobility 2 years ago. Last year it went up to 80.5%. A lot of in and outs in students. These students are significantly below grade level in English and math. And all of these factors create challenging population to work with, so it's probably not surprising that we also have a high turnover rate among our staff. And that includes VPs, classified and certificated, about 20% to 50% staff turnover every year. Now, we did have one principal for a lot of those years. About 10 years we had the same principal, but the rest of the staff, they were in and out. Not as bad as the students, but pretty close. What has been happening at the school during this time is the district implemented open enrollment in 1988, during the 80s, maybe not 88. And we had a white flight situation that happened. Several of the higher achieving students and students that were higher socioeconomically left the west end of the district. The district went through a period of declining enrollment. Encina's actually had a period of declining enrollment for a much longer time. The exodus of all the high achieving students created a declining achievement period in the school as well. No Child Left Behind came, we had AYP. Immediately, we went into program improvement as fast as you possibly could. We tried targeted intervention, we did some programs, again, top down, told us, the district and our principal told us what to do. We did manage to get out of program improvement, but pretty much directly fell right back in. As those percent proficient stairs just kept climbing up and up, we just couldn't keep up, and we went right back in program improvement. The school was run very traditionally, very top down. The principal controlled everything, every decision, and she was completely backed by the district leadership at the time. There was little to no input from staff, any of the staff, VPs, counselors, teachers, classified, no input from anywhere. Not really any much input from parents or students as well. Because we were declining in achievement, obviously that means that teachers don't know how to teach. So every single year, the district gave us another training that we had to try, another set of teaching strategies. We were trained at the beginning of the year, little to no time to work on it, no time for really good implementation. We would get our test scores at the end of the year. Kids would continue not to achieve. Oh, we got to try something else. That didn't work. This went on for years. Basically, we were death by program. There was no follow through, no continuity, and they continued to ask us to try to do new things. There were some student supports in place in an effort to keep high achieving students at the school, but also attract other high achieving students. The school started with 2 partnership academies in the early 90s. There was a health academy and a business academy that were initially very successful. As time went on, they had a very difficult time getting students to enroll in their program. We started a doctor and nurse preparatory program, excellent program, all kinds of internships, lots of resources went to this program, a lot of time and money was spent on this program. However, they were not able to attract the students that they wanted. There was usually 10 to 12 students per grade level, so in total, the program, which used up a lot of resources, really only supported about 40 to 50 students in the school. We had an excellent AVID program. It was probably the most successful program. It attracted the most students. The classes were always full. The students did show improvement and did succeed, but it couldn't be really expanded. We're a small school. It couldn't be expanded. It had a limited number of students it could serve. Now, it served the most students of the 4 programs, but still, its scope was limited. When we really looked at the data, we realized these 4 programs utilized 70 to 80% of the budget. The master schedule was built around them. Teacher resources were mostly spent on them. However, they served less than 50% of the student body. So a majority of the students were not served by a program, got no special attention, and they were the most neediest school and the least proficient, academically performing students in the school. They were getting absolutely no support. So here comes the fake redesign. The district saw that we were approaching year 3, year 4 of program improvement. They decided we're going to change up the school. We were told as a staff and as a community that there would be meetings for stakeholders, including parents and students. Now, none were recruited, but they were theoretically supposed to be a part of it. And they were going to examine the school and figure out what we need to do to change and to start having students perform academically. In reality, the plan was written before these task force, these stakeholder meetings were held. The plan was already written by the principal and district personnel. Now, when we had these meetings, they could say some of the things that came up were part of the plan. The things that didn't match, they basically said, well, you guys didn't really know what you were talking about, so we had to add all these other things. Reality is it had already been written. There was no buy-in from the staff. And fundamentally, nothing changed. All of the programs stayed in existence. Nothing changed with them. There were some committees that were going to work on some things. Those were gone within a year or 2 years. The only lasting outcome was they changed the name of the school from Encina High School to Encina Preparatory High School. That was it. Nothing fundamentally changed about what was happening at the school. After this happened, and again, things are still going on the same as they always were, there was a change in district leadership. The old guard left, and new leadership came in and started working collaboratively with the Teachers Association. And they recognized things were getting worse at Encina and really worse in the West End, and we needed to do something to make real lasting change. So the union and the district came together. They had gone to a conference for community-based schools, and they realized this is what Encina needs. We have nothing at the site that will address the socioeconomic, emotional needs of the students, and that is what's been missing at the school. So they came to the staff, they came to site leadership at the staff and said, are you guys willing to do this work? The site leadership was, they went to the staff and said, are you guys willing to do the work? And they said yes, they were. And then they created a design team. Teachers were able to apply, and they got hired to be on the design team. They heavily recruited parents and community students. We got one parent, one community member, and one student. CSEA, the design team wanted to have CSEA represented, but their union at that time decided they did not want to participate in the process, so they were not included. And in April of that year, they were to start the work of researching, looking at data, and coming up with a completely different structure for the school. At this time, we also got the school improvement grant, so that also added funding, also added other requirements that the school had to do, but it added funding so that we could get this work done. The site hired a new principal. There was an entirely new admin team came on, and then everyone was primed to start this work. However, they recognized, the district union recognized we need facilitators to guide this work. However, they didn't hire them until November. So instead of having a full year to create the design, we had to start in December, so we had half that time. And we did it. We did all the research. We worked really hard. We saw what needed to happen. We created this great, wonderful plan. And right as we're about to decide how we're going to implement it, the district says, oh, by the way, we're closing your feeder school. Jonas Salk is a bigger mess than you are. We're closing that school, and yeah, you're about to have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So we had a plan that didn't include 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and now we were having 6th, 7th, and 8th graders come to our school. So when they closed Jonas Salk and moved the students to our campus, only 2 employees at the time followed the students to the school. There was 1 English teacher and 1 counselor. The entire rest of the staff, they were either laid off because of the layoffs that were going on, or they took jobs at other schools in the district. So we now have a situation where we have the SIG grant requirements that we have to implement. We have to write a 5-year implementation plan for the design work. We have to figure out how to move 6th, 7th, and 8th graders physically to the campus, but also what's the curriculum, what are the programs that we have offered there, what are the supports those students need, and we had to hire an entire middle school staff at a school that's the hardest to staff in the district with the most difficult students. Now, there was deep layoffs at the time, so the only people that were coming back were teachers that were misplaced from their previous schools, did not want to work at Encina, did not want to work at a middle school, most of them were high school teachers, and they were told this is the only opportunity you're going to have for a job. So we had a staff of middle school teachers that did not want to be there, and the kids knew they didn't want to be there. And there was a lot of animosity between staff and students because of the situation. Middle school kids didn't want to be at Encina. They were mourning the loss of their school. High school kids didn't want the middle school kids on campus. High school teachers didn't want the middle school kids on campus. There was leftover resentment from the design with teachers that didn't agree with the design but stayed at the school. So we started the school year with a lot of strife and chaos. There were days where available district personnel, directors, program specialists were on campus just to provide more security and safety in the hallways to keep kids in the class. There was, the principal ended up leaving in November. He was told he was going to leave campus. He could choose how he left. He could retire, he could resign, he could get a different job in the district office, but he left in November. The principal that was hired to take his place for the interim did not believe in shared leadership, did not believe in the work of the school, and actively tried to undermine the work the entire time she was at the school, including to the visiting WASP team, which created problems for us later. And there was just a lot of turmoil on campus. And as a result, at the end of the 2011-2012 school year, 70% of the staff at the school left the school. Which brings us to year 2.
Thanks, Molly. So we got to this point, and how do you explain this transition? And we didn't know if we should go with the metaphorical, the roof is on fire and everything is going to, or if we should go with the literal, I think I just saw a teacher throw a desk at a student, or if we should just say what was going on, and that was, what do we do now that things have gone really badly? And there was a really, I would say, brilliant pair of moves, I think, collaborative moves by the district and the association. And the first was that they didn't quit. And it would have been so easy to pull the plug on this, to say, as Molly did, this is a hot mess, things aren't working, your staff is leaving, kids aren't getting any more service. In fact, one could argue that it's gotten worse. So we're just going to go. But we had a although they wrote it, it really was a very well-written and researched and thought-out design plan. And the district and the association knew that. And so they said, we're not going to stop. This is a good plan. We just need time for it to take hold and to build up. So to their credit, they stuck with it. The second thing they did that really made a difference for us was in this time of layoffs, and I don't know, they came up with an idea. You know, we had people being surplus from sites. And so they were being called and said, we have a job for you. It's at Encina. You can take it, or we don't have to offer you a job ever again. And people were saying, I really, really don't want to go to Encina. I have no interest in working in a Title I school or with children of poverty, but I'm not interested in being unemployed either, so I'll take it. And that created a huge mismatch. So what the district and the association worked out was teachers who were called for a position at Encina were allowed to pass and not lose their space on the list. So they didn't violate their rights for a job opportunity, but it also prevented people who had zero interest in being at a school like Encina from ending up there against their will. And so everyone was sort of willing to give it a shot. We had the interim principal left. There was a third principal in 2 years was hired. We had a new site leadership team. One leadership team member from the previous site leadership team ran and was reelected, and it was Molly, who's pretty much been there for all of it. We started to build up some teams, trying to think about our advocacy program, which is loosely again based on AVID. I won't say it's based on, maybe influenced is a better word, on the AVID model, but it really provided that kind of support for all students. And we began to do some really intensive work for the site leadership team around the way we talk to each other. And it wasn't about let's all get along. It was about how do we have difficult conversations? How do we fight not better but more productively? How do we allow our conversations to fall apart? How do we challenge each other's thinking? And how do we do so in a way that we can come back the next day and continue to work together and continue to push our thinking and continue to fight in a really civil way? And that, well, Richard's going to talk a little more about this, but that became a tremendous investment of time and energy, but paid tremendous dividends as well. As a site, we changed the focus of our PD from these continuous different programs, and not that we went away from discussing or caring about instruction and curriculum, but our PD really began to focus on understanding our students. We had a largely white staff, middle class, that was teaching students who grew up in generational poverty. Hundreds of years of poverty, of disenfranchisement, of being systematically pushed out of school systems, and now we were wondering why they weren't buying into everything we were trying to sell them, or didn't believe us that this was some sort of path. And so this work of getting to understand our students better, getting to understand our own biases better, that became a lot of the work and focus of the year as a staff. And at the end of that year, we had a really major victory. One of the things we had done by adding this advocacy period into the day, but still insisting that students be able to reach A through G requirements, forced us to extend not the length of the day, but the number of periods in a day. So we actually went from being on a 6-period schedule to being on a 7-period schedule. And So just picture this now in hindsight. These things are always, at the time it made perfect sense. In hindsight, we said, wait a minute, we went to the most difficult site to work at in the district, arguably, and then we added additional work for the teachers who were there. Wonder why they're burning out and having trouble. So we asked the staff, and this is, I think, a really, again, this is one of our good moments. The SLT, the site leadership team, had these home groups where each member of the site leadership team had 8 to 10 staff members, a small group where we could have conversations, talk about what's going on in the school and various elements, and gather feedback from how people were feeling. And we went in with an open-ended question, and we asked them, our staff, what's the number one thing that you need to be able to do your job better here, to better meet the needs of students? And 70% of them responded time. They needed time to be able to do the work. So we took that. We could have guessed that that was the case, by the way. It wasn't like that was a huge mystery. You probably all could have guessed that that was the case. But by asking the staff and having them tell us, it gave us a sense of I think, empowerment to really go to bat for our staff, because we could say, this is what our staff is telling us. And it also gave the staff a sense of empowerment as well, that their voice was going to matter, that it was going to have a real change. We went back to the design plan. We realized the design plan had called for teachers on a 7-period day to have 2 preps, so that we were actually not increasing the number of contacts that they had in a single day, that we were not increasing the number of classes that they were teaching in a single day, and that for a number of reasons that had not happened. And so we went back to the district and the association, and we said, we need this. It absolutely has to happen. And to their credit, they funded it. Now, the cost of this is approximately $600,000. So it's not a nothing thing. But we said, if you want us to redesign the program, you asked us to redesign this school, you asked us to meet the needs of students, there's a cost attached to that. It's not cost neutral. And so if we're really not going to shortchange our students of color, if we're not going to shortchange our students of poverty, then let's not shortchange them, and let's actually meet their needs. And that's what we did. And so at the end of the year, we went from 70% turnover rate, and I think this major victory gave us hope that teachers could actually do the job that they were signing up to do at a level that was appropriate, and it also gave them a sense of empowerment. And so we actually went from 70% to 30% turnover rate at the end of the second year, which was a big deal for us. During that year that they had the interim principal, WASC had come out to do a review. As you might imagine, it did not go well. We still keep that document because it reminds us of how bad things can be. And WASC had said, we're coming back next year. You cannot continue in this manner. The principal that we had hired deserves a lot of credit. He called WASC. He said, we've made tremendous changes. We're going through the implementation. We need a little more time. Can you put it off for 1 more year? And WASC thankfully agreed. So they didn't come out until year 3 of the redesign. Molly and I were the coordinators for the WASC report. We managed to get the site leadership team an additional prep on top of the 2 so that they could meet. They were meeting for approximately 2.5 hours once a week in a scheduled meeting, and then they had additional meetings throughout, usually 1 or 2 additional meetings throughout the week that they were doing work for the school. We really shifted our focus on governance because we felt like we needed to build something that was sustainable as a model. And that gave rise to a lot of teams. We shifted the way we viewed our department chairs and their work. We shifted the way that we viewed the administrative work. We built this advocacy program. We built a leadership team around advocacy. We had PBIS at our school. We built a Tier 1 intervention team that could deal with most of those issues. We saw that community partnerships were going to be a key element of what we were doing, and so we established a community partnership team. And at the end of the year, WASC came out, and they were extremely impressed with the progress. They said one of the things they were impressed with the most was, we know you have problems, but you know you have problems, and you own those problems in your WASC report. And they loved that. They loved the fact that we were putting together a plan to try and address those things, and they loved the fact that the things we knew were strong, the kids told them these are strong. And so they gave us a 6-year approval with a 1-day visit, which is a far cry from where we had been. And then we unveiled our governance structure to the staff as a whole, which they'd had input along the way, but by the time we kind of formalized it, I'm not going to go into much detail, but these are the different containers we have. Each of these is a leadership team unto itself, and you can see just a few of their responsibilities. Each of these leadership teams have complete autonomy over what they do. So, when it comes to departmental PD, that is the responsibility of department chairs. And Richard doesn't interfere. The site leadership team doesn't interfere. That's really their responsibility. If they need support or help, we have that for them, but it's their place. Anything that has to do with advocacy, the advocacy leadership team makes the decision about. We never interfere with that. I'll talk just briefly, though, about the site leadership team, because this kind of became the piece at the end, which what we kind of had to ask ourselves, well, what's the role of the site leadership team? If we've got all these other leadership teams out there, what then becomes the role of the site leadership team? And ultimately, it became to be holders of the vision. The vision and mission of the vision of Encina Preparatory High School is that all students will graduate intellectually and academically prepared to attend a 4-year university. So everything we do has to support that, to get students as close to that vision as possible by the time. If we have an 80% turnover rate, we know not all of our students are going to get there. Last year, I teach seniors. In May, I had 4 new students that came as seniors to my class. So we know that we don't have control over all of that, but we're going to get our students as close as possible. And in many ways, the site leadership team, we sort of use the analogy of a Supreme Court, that it was the checks and balances. And if there was conflict, we helped to resolve that conflict. If there was some sort of question as to where whose container, something responsibility was, we tried to help organize that. And the other thing that's really, really big, and I think the admin team at our site deserves a lot of credit for this, is they said, and we all agreed, that the site leadership team should have control of the budget for the site. Because if they're really going to be the holders and protectors of the vision, that's ultimately how you decide your final priorities, is where do you put your money. And so we gave that authority to the site leadership team, and that changed a lot of things. Just real quickly, this last year, we've adopted the motto that we are owners, not renters, that when something goes wrong, we don't call somebody else to come fix it. It's our responsibility. These are our students. We're going to meet their needs the best we can. The principal who came, the third principal, left. Richard became the fourth. And what's great about Richard is that the staff rose up almost uniformly and said, that's the person we want to continue to work of being the leader of our site, and to step into those roles, not because he's going to come in and change everything, but because he understands us, he understands our kids, and it doesn't make any sense to go in a different direction when we're finally starting to make some progress. And again, to their credit, both the district and the association supported that work, and ultimately he was selected. The site leadership team voted to give up their additional prep time that they were getting for their meetings, to ensure that our department chairs and our coordinators all had an additional release period so that they could do the work of those teams. Our staff meetings are now not run top-down from the principal, but they're facilitated by the site leadership team, and all of the various leadership teams report out and offer clarification of where we're moving as a site. We've had a lot of visits, both from people doing state-level work and national work, to come and walk our campus and to visit and talk things over with our leadership teams. We were asked to present at a conference. Hey. And we feel like we're finally moving to a place of systemization where it's no longer really about the people who are in the roles, but the culture that we've created. And the culture itself now becomes harder to break down, because once you make the shift to a new culture, then we know that culture is a really difficult thing to change. And so we've really worked hard to distribute that. And I'm probably over again. Sorry, Barry.
Okay, so we want to talk about the lessons learned. You've heard the history from before the redesign, through the redesign, and implementation. And we have a unique school. A shared governance model is not found many places, and also unique is our relationship with the association, with the district, and the way they operate. So some of the things you'll see on these slides seem so obvious, but it's how it's done that has allowed our school to thrive. So the next slide, providing ample time. That's a no-brainer. We know that. You need time to do the work. But what we really see is needed it's how do you approach that time? So you heard Molly talk about our crunched, our shortened time to design. 12 months really should be the minimum standard, but it's how do you use that time? Allowing your design team to engage in the research, visit other sites, to allow them to meet with experts and meet with leading agents of change, and then know that's a recursive process. So we didn't really know that, but that we would need to go through that process several-fold, and we're still doing that. Of course, that's ongoing work, but that would be a great takeaway is to make sure that you not only have the time, but you have a plan on how to do that. Or feedback loops. We know we need to get voice of community and families and students, but do we do it really well? We did it fairly well at times, but not to the extent that it's needed. And I think why that's so important, especially in a school like ours, a school of poverty, a failed urban school, is that our families have been let down by the system, for generations. Why would they trust us? So to authentically provide them with hope and to have those feedback loops, to have that plan, to begin to build trust. And that's a way to do some PR around the school, at the beginning. And then moving into your planning for implementation. That's a time to go on a PR crusade. In our district, our school had a really bad reputation. People, it's unfortunate to say, but I'm sure people have experienced it, unfortunately, in their school districts. But we would like to think that all educators believe in all kids, but they don't. There's racists and there's classists, and people said horrible things, and to some extent still do about our school and our kids. Having district and association out there leading the charge of PR within the district and within the community to build that hope so that you can recruit the staff. And when we think about recruiting staff, it's moving beyond where we've been successful with certificated staff, but recruiting the administrators that should be at your site, the classified staff that should be at your site. We're lucky. We have a great classified staff who love our kids and work with, quite well, but we haven't moved to that recruitment effort yet. And that is really essential, we feel. One of the other things is providing autonomy and support. Providing autonomy and support, and I think that's one thing, one of the many things that district and association, they said they would do it, and they followed through. So as you heard, they said that you'd become a community-based school, but everything else is up to you. And although that sounded too good to be true, it did materialize. And the support they provided. It's not often that a teacher, myself, I could pick up the phone and speak to the executive director of our association because we were going through a problem, or I just needed advice, or the team needed advice, or the same to the district level, that I could pick up the phone and speak to the director of secondary, and even as he moved up to assistant soup and all that, because we needed the support and they were committed to our site. You can move to the next one. So, let's just move to the next one to save time. As we, you on the third one? Yeah, go one more back. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, guys. So transitioning from design to implementation. And so Richard will talk about this, but early agreements around staffing, and you've heard about that, but we had two parallel discussions going on about what the school would look like, the design, what it would be like the day-to-day, and then how the school would be staffed. It was it was a lot of distraction to our teachers, and so we would advocate that the decision about how the school will be staffed is made at the very beginning of this design being announced. Our school is going to engage in what LA Unified or Sac City has done, or what will you do, but letting staff know of what it will look like for them or what options so they can focus on the design. Provide the time to do the work and learning. I'm not going to go into that. Molly and Ed did a great job, but the district stepped up with over $600,000 for a second prep. The SIG grant helped us with working 10 days for 2 years before school started to do the learning, and the district has continued to support that, and our teachers have now identified, no, we need to come back early. We just took a vote, and we're coming back over a week early to do the work, and it was just up to the staff. Do we need to come back early, and here's some options to use the time, and they said yes. And then becoming a true partner with the school. If you're not there every day, you truly don't know best. And so, knowing that, but also knowing, of course, our district and association have such great expertise is partnering with the staff, and they have done that with us. So when they come to our school site, they're working more or less as a consultant, not coming down and with top-down decision-making for us. It's the same as we would do with our students. Students having trouble in a math problem, we just don't do the math problem for them and hand it back. We take them through the steps so that they can solve the next problem on their own. Our department chairs do that with the department members when they have problems. We go through a consultancy model. Richard does that with those of us who are leaders, but all those, formally or informally, and help people solve their own problems. And that's where the leadership up above has done a great job. And then with the last slide about developing the relationships, working through unforeseen problems. And Ed talked about that, Molly talked about that, and that's where we've really seen the truth come out about we believe in this school, we believe in this design process, it can be teacher-led, that they're staying the course. And that is just essential. And you can't necessarily just say you're going to do it and everyone to believe. You've got to see it. And that's where, from that first year or problems that we've had since, trying to bring on some community organizations as a community partnership coordinator, we can get meetings with the district if we need the union involved. And it's not an adversarial, like we need the union. They've got to be there to fight for me as a teacher. It's their expertise. Can we have them at the table? And the answer is always yes. So there aren't those barriers that normally exist where if I said, hey, I'd like Tom Alves to come and meeting with Richard, Richard's not going to go, oh my God, he's bringing him in. He knows that there's a reason for that to happen because he has expertise that can help us. And that has been essential in the sustainability. Finding the appropriate facilitators and consultants. That, although it took a little while, as Molly talked about, to find those facilitators, what was a great move by district and union was that they let the design team pick the best facilitators. So we interviewed them to know if they would fit our needs and what our desires, and they did. Noli Porter were the design team facilitators. They truly were facilitators. They let us, they carried through that dream of the seed group of have the teachers create. And they didn't impose, they're a very experienced consulting group, but they let us come up with the idea. They helped us with the research. They helped us with that. And the same has happened with finding the consultants through the implementation. So you heard about Dialogos, essential for the work we were doing at the leadership level. And then our leaders are able to impart that wisdom with our teachers. The Coalition of Essential Small Schools from San Francisco, SFSS, they've been great in the courageous conversations we have at staff, at a staff level. You heard about the critical friends groups. We went through critical friend training for a week. Almost every staff member did that during the summer. And that was, it's kind of called the skin you're in, to realize who you are and who are the students that you're working with so that you can build that relationship with students, build that relationship with staff. And that's a huge investment. The district and union back that investment, and it's paid off. And so it's helping find the right match. So they didn't come to us and say, you're going to go through this training. It was, what do you think you need as a staff? And they helped us find that. And the last bullet point up there is adapt to the philosophy of the school. Now, for some school districts, that maybe have not implemented this same collaborative nature at district and association level, you'll have to really adapt if you're working with a distributive leadership model school. For our district and union, when they're working with us, it's kind of normal. There could be times when they're coming to a school and it could be top down. You want that quick fix as we're talking about, but that normally doesn't happen. And it's just that regular collaboration that pays off. And Saul Rubenstein talked about it yesterday with the union, the reps working with administration regularly. So if it's daily, how you just see that trajectory of student success. Well, the collaborative models that we built on campus, we don't fall into that exact paradigm because our leaders are always working with administration. You saw the long list of roles that staff members have. So it's just embedded in what we do, and that's where we're starting to see, and Richard will talk about some of the numbers where we're seeing that student success. We have things in writing. It started with the design plan. It's a fluid document, and we have our structures with the XLT that Ed talked about. They're in writing, in practice, always working on it, so that as staff comes and goes, that those models are there. And when I listened to the ABC USD's presentation, I thought of what we're trying to do and how those things are established and how you can create that sustainability. And the last thing I'll say is it's a warning. It's a slow process. collaboration is slow, and those of you that engage in it know. If you want quick decisions, you do it top down, you take care of it, and you move on. But it's not sustainable, and it's not sustainable for urban schools where you're really trying to initiate long-term change. And so it has been a great experience to work with the members, and we hope that we can bring in the other bargaining units to work at that same level. So I'll turn it over to Richard as he talks about the role of the district.
Good morning. So I wanted to bring kind of a perspective of the site administrator to all of this, because if there are site administrators in this room, we're the bridge between what the district expects sites to do and what we, working with our site staff, can actually accomplish. And what we try to do here at Encina through a shared governance model is something that's totally foreign to what's going on at other sites in the district. I get a little bit of ribbing from principals at other sites that somehow being at a teacher-led school, it's a principal-follow school, and it's as if my position's less than at Encina than it is at other sites, and I would actually argue the exact opposite, that my actual ability to get anything done as a principal is amplified by the fact that I have a staff that is sharing the governance with the administration. So, talking a little bit about how districts can support this work, and especially from the perspective of an administrator, the first thing is that the district and the association have to model exactly what it is they're asking us to do at the site. It's kind of like, you know, mom and dad telling you to get along, but they hate each other's guts. That's not going to work. The district between Tom and the superintendent and the previous superintendent as well, just they obviously believed in the idea of collaboration, and they mirrored it in the work they did together, so that we knew when they were asking us to do it at our site that they valued it, because they were in the trenches as well at their level, doing it as well. The other thing is that the district and the association agreed. They both understood very well what was going on at Encina, that its years and years and years of failure were basically due to a series of it wasn't just bad teaching, and it wasn't just bad administrating. It was this idea that the people that needed to do the hard work at Encina needed to be invested in Encina. You needed to have the right staff there, and we needed to stop this hemorrhaging of personnel through the school. And the only way to do that was to feel people, to have a staff there that felt like they were owners of the school. That the top-down model wasn't working, as Molly had alluded to. And go to the next one. Excuse me, sorry. So, they to kick this thing off the ground, there's some things that districts need to give, and some of it is financial, and some of it is just patience. Time, they need to give the site, the staff, the time to learn how to function as a decision-making body. It wasn't enough that we just got along, and we were just good people. We actually had to know how to argue with each other and discuss with each other and debate with each other in a way that was constructive, not destructive. And it wasn't a matter of just shipping us off to, 3 days of some kind of training to learn how to do that. They invested, using a consulting firm called Dialogus out of Massachusetts, they invested in 2 years of us getting trained, monthly, all-day pull-out sessions, just intensive. First, just how to talk, and then how to problem solve. And then once you've problem solved, how to go back and re-problem solve and assess your problem solving. And it was a lot. But it paid off. I would say kind of like George Martin's The Fifth Beatle. Beth Favre was probably, who was the consultant that worked with us, was probably the secret force behind the ability for the SLT to actually become a functioning agent of change at the school. District's given us time to make mistakes. As Ed alluded to, they could have just said, forget this, it ain't working after the 2011-12 school year, but they didn't. They stuck with it, and they believed in the plan, and it was just a matter of getting the right staff there and learning how to get the right staff there. And then finally to stick with it for a while, the district, as Ed had alluded to, it costs about $600,000 to $700,000 for teachers for students to have that 7th period, and for the teachers to have 2 periods to be able to do their work. And that's not even counting the release time for coordinators. It probably adds another $150,000 on top of it. But the district has committed that money to us. They haven't told me when it's going to go away yet. As of 2 days ago, it was, we could still plan on using it for years to come. Going to the next one. Finally, so you got a district that understands what the school needs to do. Got to get the right people to do it. It starts with having the right core leadership, both administrators and teacher leaders. You got to have a group that can actually has the clout and the gravitas to lead the staff. If you don't have that, it's not going to get off the ground. The other thing is we didn't do a hard opt out. I would I put it up here though, just to kind of drive the idea home that you need to have teachers and staff have that conversation with themselves and with each other about, is this the right place to work? Because Encina is not, Encina or a school like Encina that's going to go through something like this is not going to just have you be in your classroom. You are going to be pulled out of your classroom and you're going to do a fair amount of collaborating. You're going to be involved in some kind of decision-making body. This is not the school where you're just going to lease office space. And we need to have that, you need to drive that conversation, force people to have that conversation. It's not about getting teachers out of the school. We didn't want to push teachers out. We just wanted teachers to be committed. That's all. And we wanted them to have that hard conversation. Knowing, though, that some teachers are going to opt to go elsewhere, you got to have a plan to get the right staff there. And that's where the district really made an effort to deliberately, explicitly target people that they thought would help Encina develop a shared governance model. Dr. Burgess is a prime example of that. He didn't have to leave where he was. He had a nice little job at Del Campo High School, but he believed in this work. The district knew he was the right kind of person to target, and they targeted him. Dan DeJager, who's one of our staff members, was a PE teacher, steeped in the knowledge of peer assistance and review, knew how to lead collegial conversations, knew how to do collaborative or collegial driven staff development. Those people were targeted and brought. The district made that commitment. It gave people time to check the school out, and made it easy for them to decide. If they didn't want to. If I think we had was it a 1 year or 2 year where people could try Encina out for a year and could return back to their sites if they didn't like it, and it got us the right people. And then once those people are there, and I don't know how much time I have, so I'm going to try to hurry up. Having the right teacher leaders there, now allowing them the time and the space to pick the staff that they're going to work with in their departments. We turn the model upside down. I don't paper screen and then I decide who my interview panel is going to interview. It's the other way around. The department chairs paper screen. They decide who I or whoever's on the panel is going to interview. You've got the right people kind of sifting through the applicants out there to make sure, because they know who they're looking for as a department colleague far better than a principal does. I'm sorry, it's just true. You kind of want to know who your neighbors are and help pick your neighbors if you can. And then the teachers lead the development, the professional development. And I think alluded to Bulldog Days, the idea that teachers are in each other's classrooms on a regular basis, coaching teachers, doing debriefs afterwards, giving feedback to their colleagues about their practice. Thank you. And then finally, you got to let the site define the problems and the solution. Top down wasn't working. District office deciding, telling the principal is the right method. This is going to work. This is going to cure all of Encina's ills, or whatever. That didn't work. Getting the right people there to live with those kids and see what they're going through, and then defining what the solutions would be. That's what worked. That we spent a lot of time looking at our own data, generating our own solutions. The district kind of gives us that latitude. And then finally, or not finally, but the idea of having teams. So it wasn't enough that just you had a site leadership team that shared governance. The site leadership team decided that the best way to run the different programs was for them to have autonomous bodies to make decisions. So advocacy has a leadership team. Barks, which is our school culture, a tier one, PBI's tier one team, has a body that governs how it's rolled out and developed. They design all the Barks lessons that are done once a month for all the teachers. Department chairs is a team. Barry has a team. Though they have a budget. The budget that is vetted through site leadership, not through the principals, vetted through site leadership, and then given to the teams to decide how they want to spend it. We don't dictate to them how they're going to spend their money. They decide how they're going to spend their money. I'm sorry. And then finally, keeping the problem solving at the site. We hardly, if ever, go out to the district to solve our problems. If we can do it ourselves, even if it's a slam dunk, if there's an issue that I run into and it's, boy, I know there's board policy there and I know the director is going to back me up. No, that's not, I don't have to go that route. I've got a team of teachers there that want to problem solve at the site. Let's use that. And that's what we've been practiced at doing. And I'm done.
Any questions?
So you mentioned as an administrator you sometimes get the ribbing from your colleagues. How do you envision or see the role that you're playing with your staff in that partnership, being able to infuse that belief and that culture across your district?
The proof's going to be in the pudding. In the end, we've got to improve student learning, and I don't. Got to use the mic. So it's gonna be in showing the results that the school is actually working for the kids, and that's where the time pays out. We do need that time, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let the work define the success. I'm not worried about it, really. To be honest with you, I'm really not worried about it. It's gonna happen. We're gonna turn the school around. Well, we are turning the school around. We're gonna be kicking some other schools' butts.
What do the classified, are they on the teams, are they involved and all that?
Well, when we did the design, the CSEA opted to not participate when we did the redesign, so we didn't have classified. As we actually asked for the classified to be involved. As it is right now, we do not have classified working on the teams. That's an area of growth for us that we recognize. But a lot of the work, again, is done during the day, and they're with kids too. All of them are with kids too. So it's an area we know that it's on our list of things that we have to work on.
I'll say is, recently our cafeteria manager and our lead custodian saw some problems with schedules and how it impacted their staff, and they came to site leadership, which might not normally happen, and they did some problem solving around schedule. I'm not on site leadership, but I work closely with the two leads with the work I do with community partnerships, and so they knew that they could have that comfort level going to leadership and working through those problems. So the sad part is it's not to the level it is with teachers, but we see that the need's there, and I know that could be lip service, but we are making moves towards that.